All right, welcome, guys. This is Breakfast with the Brand. I am your host, Junior Frederick, and you are now tuned in to the number one podcast in the world for entrepreneurs and leaders who want to go from bland to industry leading brand. Now, if you're now coming in, if you're tuning in live, I want you to do two things. Number one, put some flames in the chat. Number two, let us know where you're listening in from. We have a very, very interesting show for you today. It's about a relatively new subject. I can't wait to have Shan. In fact, Shan, how you doing, brother? Are you present? Phenomenal morning. Let's get Shan out because this topic is a topic that is really and truly making the news right now, and I just can't wait to start talking about it. I see we have Tiffany Davis. Tiffany Davis, phenomenal morning to you. I see we have Facebook in the building. Unfortunately, I can't see the name. Right. Unfortunately, I can't see the name, but phenomenal morning to you. I see Yvonne Murphy from New York. I see Jasmine, Tampa, Florida. So phenomenal morning, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in. Um, let's see. So we're about to bring Shan out in 1 minute, but I have a question for you. How many of you? So let me see if you remember. How many times have you been on Breakfast with the Brand? How many times have you viewed us? What is your number? Is this your first show? Is this your second? Is this your 10th? I want you to put a number in the chat. Let's see. Let's see who are our faithful listeners. I see people coming in. Let's see. So Jasmine, phenomenal morning. Let's see. So Tiffany in Tallahassee. Deshaun, shout out to Deshaun. All right. So guys, listen. Today we're gonna be talking about the very, very interesting subject that is very interesting to branding. It's very similar to branding, but it's not exactly branding. And once we get Shan out here, like let me tell you, it's going to be straight fire. So Yvonne says this is her first show. So Yvonne, put it in the chat. What exactly do you do? So Jasmine says, I know it's over 10 times. It's always fire. So Mr. B, if you can, let's bring up a few of these comments. And when you're ready, let's get Mr. Rais on the platform. All right, guys, phenomenal morning. More people coming in. Okay,
All right. Phenomenal morning.
phenomenal morning.
Very good. Very
What's
good.
up? What's
Guys,
up?
we got a lot of people in here. Okay.
Yes,
Good
we
morning.
do.
Good morning. Good morning.
Yes, we do.
I see, Yvonne Murphy. She is from LinkedIn. Good morning, Tiffany Davis, YouTube. We love it. Okay. Tallahassee, Florida. Jasmine. Good morning. Good morning. And team. Phenomenal morning. I'm excited. I'm excited. I promise you. So within the community, we had a fireside chat last night. First of its kind, guys. Fireside chat. Lights was dim, super intimate. How you say marshmallows and cocoa, right?
Yes, it was.
It was
Certainly was.
very, very needed. We're in the middle of speaking like a leader, and sometimes when you go through one of the courses, if you've ever been through a course with me, it's very, very intense. Very intense. Think of the fast track. Think of 360 miles an hour, right? is super intense. So the fireside chat was just what we needed to kind of decompress, ease the tension, and just relax for a moment. So yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to go.
That's right. That's right. Now, before we jump into it, I wanna recognize everybody that is actually in the comments from all platforms. We have LinkedIn, we have YouTube, Facebook as well, and it's actually so we have Yvonne Murphy. It's actually her first show. It's her first breakfast with the brand. So I just wanna give her a quick shout out and say welcome. So, guys, we'll be talking about a very interesting subject. If you do have any questions, please feel free to put it in the comments. I see we have Jackie Thompson. So, phenomenal morning, Jackie. How you doing? Shan, today we're going to be touching on a subject that is similar, well, let's say very close to the heart of the brand.
Okay.
There's this new subject called name, image, and likeness.
Mm, yes, yes.
Now,
Name.
before you jump on that, we're gonna go to a break. You guys, you heard him? He's ready to go. So before we do that, Mr. B, when you're ready, take us to a break. Guys, put some flames in the chat. When we come back, excuse me, we'll be talking about name, image, and likeness. This is Breakfast with the Brand. Let's grow. All right, guys, welcome back. This is Breakfast with the Brand, the number one podcast in the world for entrepreneurs and leaders who want to go from bland to industry leading brand. I have with me the king of branding himself, Mr. Shaan Rais. So, guys, if you're now coming in, I want you to do two things. Number one, put some flames in the chat. Number two, let us know where you're listening in from. So, I see we have some newcomers. Phenomenal morning to you, Charmaine. I see we have Aaron on LinkedIn, Jackie Gilchrist, and
Phenomenal
lots
morning.
of flames this
Morning.
morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Let's grow. Let's grow. Growth
All
and
right.
development. Let's go.
Yes, sir. So this morning we want to dive into the subject of name, image, and likeness, or what people are typically calling NIL, right? NIL. This is I've read a little bit on NIL, but I want to hear from your perspective, and for the people listening who I guess this may be the first time that they're hearing about this particular subject.
Mhm.
Let's start with the basics. What is NIL?
Well, the definition of NIL, as you mentioned, is name, image, and likeness. And what it represents, of course, is that personal brand, right? It's the personal brand. But let me put it in categorization. So, in categorization, what they're doing now is they're allowing student athletes to be compensated for their name, image, and likeness. So before there was, if you've ever seen Above the Rim or any movie like that, there was always a pay for play kind of thing going on with young athletes and colleges and how they would recruit. Now what's going on is, and it was banned. It was banned. You couldn't do the pay for play at all, right? So now what happened is they've kind of lifted sanctions on compensation for young people's athletic ability. So while they're in school, not only are they able to get their scholarships and get their education and begin to get their introduction into the sports world, but they're also being able to be the face of different brands. So sponsorships are taking place outside
Yeah.
of the scholarship space, right? So
Yes.
compensation. So a lot of young people that are athletically gifted are now going to be able to become entrepreneurial early and
Hmm.
get some monetary value around their personal brand. And that's why it's so important that we kind of enter that space with a personal brand development, leadership development component to accentuate the economy. Because if not, what's going to happen is young people are going to be tempted to put economy over education, right? And
Mhm.
luxury over leadership, right? Compensation over character. It's very important that we enter the conversation in this intersect, like right now in this sensitive moment, to kind of head it off at the pass or meet it and complement it with a leadership development, brand development, personal brand development focus, not just for short-term monetary gain, but for long-term life leadership and legacy building.
Mm. That's interesting. So when you say that, a couple things come to mind. The first question that came to mind was, is this NIL concept? Is it only for student athletes? Are they the only beneficiaries of you know? Is it only for them? Are they the only beneficiaries of that?
Okay, so yes and no. The NIL within collegiate athletics is only for college athletes. However, co- professional athletes have always been able to leverage their personal brand for compensation and to become the face of major brands and make tons and tons of revenue during their career. Now, that begs another question. Do they leverage their leadership within the sports arena? Very
Right.
many times they don't. Very many times they don't. As a matter of fact, from 3 to 7 years after retirement, I think 70 to 90% of football players file for bankruptcy, right?
Mm.
And that's only because they don't know how to leverage their personal brand. Boxing, basketball, same thing. Many times, look at like a Shaq, Shaquille O'Neal,
Mhm.
crushing it, crushing it. He's ready to be in the billionaires club, right? And you have people like Michael Jordan who kind of started it in the sports space to crush it with his personal brand and the joint deal with Nike and then his own Air Jordan line. So there's many opportunities that exist for not only young people but for professionals to leverage their leadership and build a personal brand that can become the face of a professional major retail brand.
All right. So when you talk about, in fact, before I jump to the next question, let me ask the people watching, guys, put a number one in the chat if you understand what Shan just said. If you understand the concept of name, image, and likeness. If you're following the conversation, put a number one. Okay, put a number one. In fact, put some flames in the chat if you're following the conversation of name, image, and likeness. Let's make sure that everybody's with us. Okay, so I see the number ones coming. Now, you know, I'm a little different, right, Shan? I listen into what people say.
Okay.
So when you say leverage leadership, a lot of people they may not understand. I understand it, but a lot of people may not understand what it means to leverage because leadership is a characteristic. It's an intangible thing. So when can we dive a little deeper into that?
Of
How
course.
does leadership development play into the name, image, and likeness? Why is it important? And what is the end result of having that leadership development process, incorporating that into the NIL? How does it make the NIL more valuable at the end of the process? Can
Okay,
we talk
very,
about
very good. Definitely. So let's speak to character. Character. A sponsor, any major brand doesn't want to pick up someone who may be taint. They might taint the brand or be dangerous for the brand or scandal the brand. You have to realize that leadership development is character development. And character development for a huge sponsor is the best case scenario when they're picking young athletes to represent the brand because these young people are going to have a nice amount of compensation. Now when you mix youth, money and
that?
high levels of athleticism or testosterone, it doesn't always turn out right. It doesn't always turn out right. As a matter of fact, some would say that it's a recipe for disaster, which is why many parents and many athletic officials are not for it. They are against it. So the NIL has only been given a green light in 26 states right now. That's it, 26 states. Because the other states are undecided as to whether it's going to be a benefit or a detriment to the young people involved. However, when colleges and if colleges hopefully instill a component of leadership development, character development, and personal brand development into their institution, now they have safeguards, parameters, and kind of like a training academy for young people, not only to develop athletically, but also to develop mentally, personally, professionally, emotionally, and financially. And this is the maturity aspect that needs to take place because you don't just want to give a young person a lot of money. When you look into, and I'm not going to go too deep into this, but when you look into the development of the brain has time, it needs time to mature. And before it does, what happens is you have young people who are all gas and no brakes. So there's no real like consequential thinking. This is why when young people make an action in haste or in a high level of adrenaline, and people ask them, "What were you thinking?" they can't put a finger on it because they're very emotional. So, in order to control the emotion and the tendency to go off track with all of these new possibilities, there must be a leadership development, character development, and emotional maturity development case to be made.
I see. So so it's
Oh,
basic.
I'm
Right.
sorry. Let me answer the last part of your question.
Yes.
What it
Uh-huh.
does for sponsorships and what it does for big brands is it's kind of like an insurance payment. It's an insurance that
Yes.
the person has not just attainability, but sustainability. So they can trust the school to develop the character of the individual and athletic component and department, the player development component. So it's not just pay for play, or it's not just giving a lot of money to a guy who might make go out and make a wrong decision. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. We're about to go to a break. But basically, what I'm hearing is leadership development is an asset. Your leadership is an asset. It's almost like real estate. That's what I hear.
Very good. I'm glad
You,
you heard that correctly.
that's right.
Wait till we get back. I'm gonna
Yes,
say
wait till we get back. All right, guys, we're about to go to a break. We'll be right back. Put some flames in the chat.
let's
Let's
grow.
grow. All right, guys, welcome back. This is Breakfast with the Brand, the number one podcast in the world for entrepreneurs and leaders who want to go from bland to industry leading brand. So I think we have Shan. Shan, are you back? Let's get Shan out here. It's a phenomenal show, and I know before we went to break, there was something you had to say about
Okay,
the real
so
estate piece.
real quick, the real estate. But I want to speak to something a little bit different. Actually,
Right.
I like the analogy that you made before we left. But let's get into the character development,
Yes.
right? These are young people, right? These are young people. There's something going on called adultification, right? I had Leonard Cello on maybe 3 4 weeks ago, and he spoke to the school to prison pipeline, and he was talking about the advent of adultification of young people, where they might be 13 14 17, and instead of saying children or adolescents, you say young man or little man, right? But we have to understand that these are young people, very young, right? Very young, not legal, not mature to a specific degree to where they can make so many conscientious decisions that have huge propensity for failure, right? Or consequences on the other end of it. And you think about the children not being at home and being away from home, so they're largely unmonitored in a college setting. It's very important that we put in the safety parameters and the kind of development program that will ensure not only success but safety. And in the sports world, enough things happen in college by itself. It's a whole nother world. outside of sports. Now, when you combine college and the demands of an education and high performance along with college, what happens is you have the recent scandals in the news about doping, um, arrests, late night things taking place that are not conducive to high performance nor longevity. So it's very important that we ensure that there are some parameters in place and some adult supervision and some installation, some satellite installation of a program that speaks to the leadership development and the character development of these young people. And we're not just throwing money at them. That's what I wanted to say, because if you look at the recent news and you look for athletes, especially like in the Olympics, for instance,
Right.
and we spoke about this before. There's been multiple names. I won't mention any of them because I want to help our people as opposed to hinder them or put the spotlight on negative, uh, negative events that took place. Because there's a lot of scandal, there's a lot of besmirching of character and name, image, and likeness. And I won't add to that. What I will do is I'll enter the conversation at the intersection of personal brand development and leadership development to not only make these things attainable, but long-term sustainable.
Wow, that was straight fire. Guys, put some flames in the chat for Shan. Shan, you sort of answered my I was gonna ask you a question. I think you sort of answered that. My question was, where do we fit into that NIL space? Because a lot of people, it's a relatively new subject, and a lot of people know us for personal branding, coaching, consulting. So it's like, okay, where does this company fit into that space exactly? So for those who, now I caught it, but for those who may not have exactly caught it, where does this company fit into the NIL space?
At that intersection, right? We fit strategically at that intersection of personal brand development and leadership development. Because right now, what people are concerned with is, can they dunk? How fast can they run? Can they swim? Are they attractive? Do they look good? Are they good for the next dollar? Are they good for the next 2 years to be the face of the brand? And
Right.
while the answer may be yes, it's also dismissive. While the answer may be yes for the short term, there has to be a long term development as far as the character of the individual, the personal brand, because I promise you, what we've been able to do with entrepreneurs in business is put zeros behind their numbers. So when you help a young person not just be a young, fresh face for the brand, but when you help them to develop their leadership and develop their personal brand, they can literally turn 10,000 into 1 million, easily turn 20,000 into 200,000, and also get long-term security as well as their education. Because you got to remember, these young people are now going to be looked at as entrepreneurs. And we know that business can be like war. And we know entrepreneurialism is very challenging. And we know what people are already given as far as music videos when it comes to money and when it comes to specific demographics and populations. It's not the safest situation. It has to be curated. And there should be parameters put in place so that it doesn't turn into a music industry. And that's all I'm going to say on that. I won't go deep, but we don't want the college scene to become a rap video.
Yes, sir. That makes a lot of sense. Guys, if you caught that, put a number one in the chat if you
And
caught
I
that.
love hip hop music, just for the record, right? I love hip hop music, but
Yes.
I'm just saying there has to be some kind of civility and civilization put into it before it turns into something that people are not intending. You got to look down the block and around the corner on this thing.
Exactly.
You got to look down the block and around the corner. If it's not curated, then it will tend to run wild.
Right. So so what about the other athlete though? Because we so that's for the student. So the student athlete that's coming up, they're basically building an asset. Now I know we have a lot of mothers um, looking at the show right now. Some of
Okay.
them, their sons play basketball.
Yep.
If you're a mother with a son or daughter um, who does sports, put a number two in the chat. Whether you be on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube.
Mm.
So I know a lot of mothers are looking, and that's so the NIL, the leadership development, the NIL, that basically helps that their child to develop an asset that they could leverage for the rest of their life, basically for the rest of their life.
You
But
know,
what about
that's another interesting point. That's another interesting point because the conversations that I've entered to with people on this topic is that there's a specific demographic that starts out behind the eight ball.
yes?
They start out behind the eight ball because these young guys and these young females come from economically deprived backgrounds. So when you got someone who's in a challenged situation already, and you offer them a little bit of money, of course they're going to take it because it's not just them that they're thinking about, or is this the best thing I can possibly take? No, they're thinking about getting their 16 cousins off the floor, right? And putting them in a bed. And they're thinking about retiring their mother. They're thinking about making it big. So these young people become vulnerable, vulnerable, and easy to be taken advantage of. So it's very, very peculiar and it's very interesting and it has to be curated. Don't just throw the money at the young people without the development, because what happens when you throw finances at a person without financial intelligence,
Mm.
or you throw luxury at a person without leadership development, or you throw currency at a person without character development, it doesn't become a benefit, it becomes a deficit. See, money magnifies who you are. It's a magnifier. So if you haven't developed the individual and you give them a massive influx of income at one moment, remember we talk all the time about a person becoming a millionaire before they get the $1 million. Now what's happening is you're talking about a person being given the $1 million before they become a millionaire or before they even become a mature adult.
That makes a lot of sense. And Jasmine, can we bring Jasmine's comment up, Mr. B? She made a very good comment there. If possible, let's bring that comment up. By the way, guys, if you do have questions, this is a Q&A as well. So it's not just a dialogue. It's a it's an open space where you could ask questions, get feedback. So if you're a mother and you're looking and you're curious about NIL and exactly how does your son or how does your daughter fit into that space, then definitely put your questions in the chat. So so Shan, while we wait for that, my next question was this, right? We've spoken a lot about the student athlete, but what about the professional athlete? Somebody who's already quote unquote in the game. They're already, you know, where is their space? Do they have a space when it comes to name, image, and likeness? And how could we help them?
Well, the first thing that they want to realize is that they're not in the basketball game, right? You play basketball, you love basketball, but you're not really in the basketball space. This is entertainment. Sports is entertainment, and it creates icons and it creates potential for legacy. It creates potential for legacy. If you look at a Jordan, you look at a Shaquille O'Neal, these are individuals that have made phenomenal, phenomenal future moves based on their entry point. Their entry point was basketball. So basketball is your entry point. Boxing is your entry point. Football is your entry point. But there's a huge look at George Foreman, personal branding, personal brand, financial intelligence, leadership development, positioning, positioning. And you look at you can't help but to look around you at when keeping it real goes wrong, right? And all of the people around you that come from this background where certain values are different and they bring old values into a new game. They bring old values into a new arena. So that
Right.
which was smiled upon where you come from and posted on Facebook, posted on Instagram, that was cool where you come from. But in the business world, in the sports to business world, it's a detriment, it's detrimental, and it will harm you. So what we do is we help leaders become brands so they can make their yearly income monthly, their monthly income weekly, and their weekly income daily. And what we have seen through our work and expertise, education and experience is that it's transferable to the high performance individual, industry, or sports. Not, it doesn't make a difference where your entry point is. As long as you're a high performance individual, we do this for people who are on a job. Help them to develop their personal brand so they can catch the attention of the decision makers and they can move up in their job. On the athletic field, we help athletes develop their personal brand so they can catch the attention of the sponsors and turn their salary into multiple revenue streams and help them to turn their salary into legacy, their season into the reason why people want to work with them ongoing and
Right.
not just during the season or not just for their short career because careers are not that long. You got a hot moment. You got a hot season. You got a real hot moment, a couple of years to make an indent and make an imprint in an industry. But you've got a lifelong of legacy potential if you do it the right way.
That's right. And you know, that is so powerful. That is so powerful. I played sports when I went to high school, right? So I and you know, had somebody told me about that concept, I think I would have benefited from this concept, and I believe I know a lot of other people who would have benefited from the concept of name, image, and likeness. So what I heard you say is for the student that is ambitious enough, investing time, money, and effort into their name, image, and likeness is like putting money into a business.
Of course. They're
It's
on.
putting money into a business. So
Mhm.
for the student athlete and professional athlete that has the entrepreneurial spirit, entrepreneurial drive, this is like their biggest one of their biggest opportunities um, to really create a phenomenal future for themselves.
It is. It really is. And it's time sensitive. It's time sensitive. The player department, the athletic department within the college, there needs to be something installed. There needs to be an installation within the department to help these young people become phenomenal individuals on and off the field, right? Because there's being a phenomenal leader in the sport, but being a phenomenal leader in the sport and being a phenomenal leader in the sport of life is two different things completely. Two different things completely. So again, it becomes a situation and a question of not allowing your talent to take you where your character can't sustain you, right? It becomes a thing
Yeah.
of not letting your talent carry you somewhere that your character will bury you, right? So you
Mm.
need to
Write that
look.
down, guys. That was a pen. That was a pen moment. That was a pen moment.
Don't let your talent take you or your skill carry you somewhere that your character is going to bury you. And sometimes that's not only literal, it's actually happened before. It's actually happened before. So let's get in front of this thing instead of, you understand? Let's get in front of
Yeah.
this thing and celebrate and do the right thing as opposed to looking at it after things go
Yes. After
wrong
the
and
fact.
saying, wow, I wish we would have done
Yeah.
X,
Yeah.
Y, and Z.
Yeah. There's a saying, when you don't handle stuff, stuff will handle you.
It's very important. It's
Yes.
very important because everybody's eager, everybody's hungry. There's a lot of money being thrown around, and this is the right time to get in front of it.
Yes, it is. Now we do have a question that I just wanna just
A
read
lot
it.
of comments.
Yeah, we have a lot of comments, a lot
Yeah,
of
can we
questions.
get any of those comments up on the board? Let's handle some of those. Thank you.
Hold on. Before we get this one, we had one previously from Facebook user. Unfortunately, I can't see the name. Could we bring that one up, Mr. B? There we go. This so they've been waiting for a little while now. So the person asks, why do you think there is a different perspective for student athlete and others? Examples would be same age group in commercials, movies, music, and even social media.
That's a very good question, and it's this is my point. This is my point. If you look at young people in school, out of school, in that age range, in that generation, it's very hyper. It's very emotional and adrenaline driven, and there's consequences to emotions and high adrenaline when there's no character development, leadership development, personal brand thought given to the long term. Life is not a music video, right? We make decisions, and those decisions come with consequences. And nobody's coming to just say, cut. They don't understand sometimes that this is real life, and real life carries with it short term decisions, long term consequences. I love the question. And if you look at the current state of commercials, movies, music, and even social media, is that what we want to provide the parameters?
Right.
Or do we want professionals in those places providing parameters, guardrails, and creating safety nets and developmental tools and resources for these young people? And I think we all know the answer to that.
That was a great question.
Definitely.
That was a great question. I see Jackie Gilchrist has a comment. Is it possible to bring a comment up, Mr. B? All right. So she says this is just as important for the professionals, if not more, because they have even more to lose.
Mm, wow.
Let me read that again. This is just as important for the professionals, if not more, because they have even more to lose. So many eyes are on them. They are influenced by so much that can disturb the brand they don't recognize they should be developing.
That was a Wakanda question. And I'm looking at the picture, right? And the picture reminds me of Wakanda as well. So that's a
Uh-huh.
phenomenal picture. Yeah, she's building a brand, definitely. Jackie Gilchrist just released a book too, guys. If you don't know, like we are super proud of our phenomenal clients, of which Jackie Gilchrist is one. And she just released her book. So Google her, Google the book, purchase the book, support the community, support her. Yes, ma'am. Phenomenal things. But let's get to the question. Let's get to the question. Go ahead. This is
All
just
right.
as important for the professionals, if not more, because they have even more to lose. Correct. Correct. Adults make decisions. They know what the consequences are most of the time, and they still do it. Young people, their prefrontal cortex and the amygdala has not matured. It has not graduated yet from adolescent stages to really be in a space where the consequences of their decisions are known to them. They don't have
Right.
consequential thinking. Those faculties and those reasoning elements are not present yet. So someone should be there to inform their practice. And they do
Right.
have a million eyes on them. They live under a microscope. And they are influenced by so much that can disturb their brand that they don't recognize they should be developing. This is the point. they're not aware of it. They're a lot of times they're just playing the game and they're happy to be out of the hood, right? They happy to be on the field,
Hmm.
but they're not aware of the molding, the hands and the energies that are molding them. So there has to be a curative element. There has to be a protective element, and it should be one that is focused on maximizing their long-term potential instead of juicing them for the moment.
That's right. That's a phenomenal answer, Shan, for a phenomenal question. Yes, yes. Let's get to the next one. Jennifer has a question. Let's get to that one. So Jennifer says, why would you say to the athlete that needs capital needs to break away from the parent manager? Let me read that again.
Yeah, please
What
do
would
it.
you say?
Hold
What
on.
would
Hold
you
on.
say?
Slow.
All
Jennifer
right,
asked
okay.
me a question, so make sure I hear that one correctly.
All right. So what would you say to the athlete? Right. So we're speaking to the athlete, right? What would
Hmm.
you say to the athlete that needs to break away from the quote unquote parent manager who isn't equipped to handle, I guess, to manage that athlete's brand? So
Understood.
what would you say to that person?
I understand. Parents mean well. They have the best intention for us. They want the best for us. Managers many times do things the old way before NIL existed. So they're athletically inclined, they're scholastically inclined, they're institutionally designed to support the institution and their desires, which could be to bring in the biggest sponsors and get the biggest commissions, create the biggest relationships so that the school becomes known for X. Sometimes it is smarter to hire a contractor from the outside of the industry specifically who's a specialist and an expert in that micro niche of personal branding and personal development, leadership development, or high performance of individuals within organizations like industrial and organizational psychology, right? Sometimes it's very important to hire outside of the people that are inside of your circle because everyone sees the same thing. They're kind of inside of the tornado. And sometimes it takes an outside perspective to look in and look from a higher level to see all of the opportunity that exists. Everyone is not equipped nor educated nor has the experience to develop a personal brand. See, we have come from very humble roots. As a matter of fact, the hood. I'm just a kid from Harlem who God chose to show his favor and mercy through, right? So I took my phone and created a phenomenal personal, professional leadership and legacy brand through Facebook alone, organically, no sponsorships during COVID. So there's a few things that I know about social media, and there's a few things I know about curating and creating a phenomenal, profitable, and productive personal brand as opposed to a sports agent or mom and dad. And whether it's us or it's elsewhere, the thing that you want to do, okay, think about this. You inherit some money. You inherit some money, right? Somebody passes in a long time lineage, someone you didn't even know, and you just get called to a bank and they tell you you just inherited $30 million. Mom and dad love you. And the bank manager wants to help you. Of course they do, right? But then there's hedge fund managers who's been paid for the past 30 years to do nothing more than manage long-term heavy money. What do? Do you listen to mom and dad? Do you listen to the bank whose best interest it is to keep the money there? Or do you hire outside of the circle someone whose business it is to manage huge funds? I don't think that's a very much of a question. I think that's pretty much a no-brainer, right? So
Yep.
you have your collegiate coaches that help you to stretch and to jump higher and to run faster. You have your maybe even sleeping coaches who help you to maximize your sleep, your rest, your hydration, your energy, your nutrition, all of those things. There's coaches for all of those. There are also coaches and consultants that specialize in the space of leadership development, personal brand development, and maximizing your potential to attract your ideal clients. You have to think, young people, about what you want to be known for. What brands do you want to be associated with? Who do you want to touch in the world? Right? This is called vision. You're running a mission right now. You're on the field, you're running right now. But I want you to think long term. What do you want to be known for? Who do you want to serve? Who do you want to represent? Who do you want to stand for? And who do you want to recognize, respect, and hold you up as the leader of their platform? See, there's champions and then there's the people's champion. And they're not always the same person. And one always has more equity than the other. The champion is an assignment, they're assigned leadership. The people's champion, you can't take that title away. That one's for keeps.
Yes, sir. So we're about to go to a break in 1 minute. But guys, if you've been enjoying the show so far, I want you to put some flames in the chat. I see
Let me
we
ask a
do have
question.
some people.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I just want to say one thing. I hope my entrepreneurs are getting something from this. If you're an entrepreneur, you're not in sports, you're in business, put a 7 in the chat if you know this resonates with you too. If you're getting something from this as well, if you know that this specifically speaks to you and your craft and the way you should be building your brand and thinking about longevity and long-term equity, put a 7 in the chat. Let me see how many people are paying attention and realizing that I'm not only speaking to students, but also to entrepreneurs. These are principles. These are principles, and principles are not industry or age specific.
There we go.
There we
So I see a couple sevens coming in. All right, guys. Thank you. Let's go to a break, and when we come back, more on NIL. Let's go.
go. Maybe not. There's been a couple gaps in this segment for some reason. So let's go ahead and bring up another question or address another question. I
Well, I
see.
see I see a comment there actually from
Bring
Jackie
it up.
Gilchrist, right?
Or
So
actually read it off because we might not be able to bring it up.
yeah, let's just read it off. I see she says it is truly the support of your leadership and the community that pushed me to achieve these goals. Thank you. Being in this community is life changing. All right. There
Oh,
we
okay.
go. There we go.
Yes, man. Yes, man. Thank
So,
you so much. So we taught how to write a book in the second week of Branded Like a Leader. So I think that's what she's referring to. In the second week of Branded Like a Leader, we specifically spoke to how to write a book 300 pages or less in less than 30 days. And you are super welcome. You know, we work on helping our phenomenal leaders, entrepreneurs, athletes, celebrities, CEO, executives to build their personal brand through resources that will help them to attract their ideal clients or sponsorships, as the case may be. You're very welcome, though.
definitely.
Thank you so much.
Definitely. I see we have a few comments from Jasmine. Let's bring it up if possible.
Just read it off.
Okay. So she says professional, characterized by or conforming to the technical and ethical standards of a profession.
Yeah.
So professionalism is not a kinship or birthright.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
The
ma'am. So I
truth.
think she's speaking to the question that you asked about why is it more beneficial to bring in a professional to deal with a specific situation. Let me give
Yeah.
another analogy to this real quick, right? So because I know the question that Jasmine asked. Okay, we got Sean P. Thomas. That's the Facebook user. What's good, brother? What's good, brother? Welcome, welcome. And the question that Jennifer asked was bringing in a specialist as opposed to the manager parent, right? The manager parent. Let me give you this. You tear your rotator cuff. You tear your rotator cuff in your shoulder. Now, mommy love you. Mommy been with you forever. She love you. However, she's not a shoulder specialist. You go to the ER. You go to the ER, and there's a lot of general practitioners who are able to say, "Ooh, okay, great." They do a X-ray. They look at the X-ray. They say, "Okay, that's a torn rotator cuff." You know what they do next? They make an appointment for you to go to a shoulder specialist. So the shoulder specialist is the person who's educated, experienced, and his expertise is the shoulder, not the hip, not the back, not the neck, the shoulder specifically, right? Mommy love you, but she's not a shoulder specialist. The general practitioner can write the recommendation, set up the appointment, give you some pain medication, but they are not the shoulder specialist. So the mommy and the manager within the sports department, they care for you and they are a part of your internal team. However, they are not the brand or personal brand development specialist, nor are they the leadership development specialist.
That was the perfect analogy.
I hope so.
That was the perfect. I think every guys, you got that right. If you got to put a number one in the chat, I think that was the perfect analogy.
If you let mommy set your shoulder, it could be the end of your career. If you let the general practitioner try to sweet talk your shoulder or really go into your shoulder, that might be the end of your career. If you don't let a professional help you to guide and curate the personal brand development at the intersection of leadership development, you can fail in your career, in your opportunity, but also in your life. There's big term consequences, short term gains, big long term consequences. You can maximize. So, one of the things that I would like to offer to the young people is to maximize, optimize, and monetize. Many times they're not thinking about the maximization of the opportunity or the optimization of the situation. They're thinking about the monetization. That's short-term thinking. There's another protocol that we use called clarify, simplify, and amplify, where you clarify exactly what you want, then you simplify it, boil it down to the common denominator, and then amplify the one thing. You're not going to learn that from a manager.
That's right. So, guys, it's been an amazing show. We're about to close off, but listen, next Saturday, same time, same place, Breakfast with the Brand. We'll be talking more about this subject of NIL. Um, I think we'll be diving more into the social media aspect. A lot of student athletes are putting out things on social media that maybe
Yeah.
let me put it like this, right? Social media, what you post, is it positively impacting your NIL or is it negatively impacting your NIL? So we'll be talking on that subject when we come back to Breakfast with the Brand. So before we close off, Shan, is there anything that you want to offer to the audience?
Life, leadership, and legacy, right? Life, leadership, and legacy. These are three main areas, three main components that you have to address. Think of it as a three-legged stool. If you've got two legs on the stool, you're going to hit the floor, no matter which two you have. People are very successful in their position. You don't want to be a success and a private failure. You don't want to be successful economically, but a wreck emotionally. That's the tabloids. That's the scandals. It's the suicides, man. I mean, it's a real thing. It's a very real thing. You can be successful, but success is not always sustainable. We'll see you next week on Breakfast with the Brand. Let's grow. Thank you.